Now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
Good Tuesday morning. That's right. It is Tuesday. You'll probably feel confused all day because of the holiday on Monday. But good Tuesday morning to you all. Thanks so much for tuning in. It is 6:07. It's O'Connor and Company. We've got a great lineup today. At 7:05, we'll talk to Eli Lake with the Free Press on Biden's latest criticism of Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu. At 8:05, Steve Moore with the Heritage Foundation. He'll talk about Trump's steel policy, Kamala stealing Trump's steel policy to court Pennsylvania voters. And at 8:35, our friend Molly Hemingway of The Federalist about an issue I care a lot about. It's the Alexandria Karens putting the Vance family in danger by revealing where they live. I'm Julie Gunlock alongside my good friend Andrew Langer. How you doing, Andrew?
I am still confused. I'm still trying to figure out what day of the week it is. And yes, by the way, I think the Alexandria Karen should be the name of the new minor league softball team in Alexandria.
Yeah. Hey, don't bring up baseball or softball in Alexandria. It's a tough subject.
Oh, sure.
Andrew, have you ever pretended that you're on the phone to avoid talking to people?
You know, only when I got, if folks want to come up and hit me up for change, I'll pretend to be on the phone, like if I know, yeah. So yes, I will admit I have done that. I have never, however, done it where I have earbuds in my ear and I hold up the phone to my ear because that's a clear tell.
That's not good. I do it all the time because I live in Alexandria and there are crazy women all around me. So and we've all done it. It's sort of the Paris Hilton thing. Remember a couple years ago, Paris Hilton says that she puts the phone up when she sees paparazzi. So
right. Or people who don't have a phone, and what they do is they put the earbuds in their ear, but then the cord is connected to nothing in their pocket, because they don't want to talk to people.
Giving me all new ideas, all new strategies here. So it's a pretty harmless thing. You're walking or going about your day. You don't want to talk to people. But you shouldn't probably do it when you're the current vice president and you're running for the highest political office in the nation. And that's what I'm talking about is Vice President Kamala Harris did that yesterday.
Sure.
She was filmed. She's on the campaign trail, and she was filmed boarding her flight as she left Andrews in Maryland on some campaign stops. She got out of the vehicle, and, she had her earbuds in, and she was talking, so she wanted to appear like she was on the phone. And, of course, this was to avoid the journalists who had all lined up to ask her a few questions. Don't forget, this is a woman who took a month after she was appointed to do any kind of media. Then she picked the most friendly media person, Dana Bash at CNN, who gave her softball question after softball question, and she has been avoiding the press ever since. And so yesterday she was filmed getting out of her vehicle, earbuds in, wouldn't talk to the press, pretended she was on the phone. In the clip, journalists can be overheard trying to get Harris's attention, but she would sort of wave dismissively as she does.
Well, it's funny. It reminds me of folks, you and I have both known folks who've gotten into this business that you and I are in, the talk radio business, who don't like actually talking on the radio. And it's like, and it's like eventually, by the way, I was waiting for Julie to take a drink before I said that. But the point is, it's like, why are you doing this job if you don't want to actually talk? If you don't have something that you want to say, why are you doing this? Like, an essential part of the job of any politician
is to talk.
Talking to the press and explaining what you do, by the way, because you want people to vote for you. Or, as we were just talking in the last segment, if you want people to vote for you under false pretenses, then you don't talk to people.
Then you clam up. And we're seeing this strategy from Waltz as well. As you recall, I think we talked about this yesterday. He was at the Minnesota State Fair. He has this weird Chris Farley type thing that he does where he waves his arms around and he's very expressive.
It's not just Chris Farley's Matt Foley impression, right? His van down by the river, but it's also this other guy, this news commentator that he talks about. I'm not conventionally good looking. I don't shower much.
Yes.
That's the guy that Tim Waltz is. He's that guy. Tim Waltz is fine, by the way, when he wants to talk about pork chops or deep fried butter or whatever it is they're serving at the Minnesota
he's
State
very
Fair.
expressive.
They're all into it, but as soon as the tough question, sorry, go ahead.
So I want to just kind of remind people what happened. 6 hostages were killed. 1 being an American were killed. We found out about it early Monday. Waltz, that was the same day that Waltz goes to the Minnesota State Fair, eating his fried butter, and he's not confronted. I mean, there was just some media there. The first 2 questions from the media were really friendly. They were things like, how do you like your pork chop? These were not tough questions. Very sort of the Biden, what is your favorite ice cream flavor? And then a reporter asked him specifically about the hostages being killed. And he sort of looks at his staffer. The staffer says something to him and he says, okay, goodbye. And we've got to cut. Let's play cut 10.
Governor, how are you feeling?
What's your reaction to the 6 hostages being found dead in Gaza?
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Just leaves.
Yeah, this was supposed to be. I'm sorry. This was supposed to be a stop where I'm supposed to eat a piece of meat and have a milkshake and not talk about anything serious.
Yeah,
sorry,
and then I looked at his Twitter feed that day. This was hours after the news had broken of losing these 6 hostages, and just incredibly tragic. And some of the we by then we had seen videos of the parents, of some of the reactions from people, and the only thing I found that day, and he later issued a statement, but at that time was him on video talking about a pork chop on a stick.
Right.
So the news was out that these 6 hostages had been killed, was out for hours. And all he posted was pork chop on a stick. And then when a reporter directly asked him, he says goodbye and walks away. It's appalling. And again, but this is the strategy, as we've seen Kamala pretending to be on the phone, waving off the reporters. Waltz is the same way. They just have decided they're not going to talk to the press.
Well, no, I mean, it gets into what we were talking about in the last segment, right? It's a one-off on the idea of talking about anything but the economy, which, of course, this belies that, because the reality is they can't really talk about anything else too, because there's just no
nothing
good
to
news.
say.
Yeah. By the way, Tim Walsh also awkwardly not holding the pork chop on a stick by the stick, but holding it in a piece of wax paper to sort of eat it like it was a sandwich, which is a very strange thing as it was as well. Sorry.
I love that you added that, because that is important. But again, this is their strategy. There were questions earlier, last month, about Waltz and his claims that he served overseas. Just really quick, if we can play cut 11.
Fans accuse you of stolen valor. Your response. Governor.
And in that case, he just turned away. He was talking to some kids. These people do not want to talk. We've got a lot more on this subject, and we'll get to it. It's 6.
The news is brought to you by Thompson Creek Windows.
So we heard from Biden. Biden actually came back from vacation yesterday, Andrew.
Yeah. Yes.
And was looking sort of, he didn't look like he got much rest. He was looking pretty rough, I have to say. He went to a campaign event with Kamala. Go ahead.
Or this is what he now looks like all the time, because he's constantly resting. So it's, it's a thing where it's, he's just looking ragged all the time.
What? I have to do work.
Yes.
To do work. He did end up going to a campaign event and sounded as angry as usual. But I want to get to what he said about Netanyahu. Let's play cut 13. He was sort of stopped. He actually did talk to reporters, unlike Vice President Harris. But let's listen to what he had to say at cut 13.
Planning to present a final hostage deal for both sides this week.
We're very close to that.
What makes you think that this deal will be successful in a way that the other deals were not?
Hope springs eternal.
Mr. President, do you think it's time for Prime Minister Netanyahu to do more on this issue? Do you think he's doing enough?
No.
Mr. President, what is your reaction to the demonstrations across Israel? What is your reaction to the demonstrations?
I'm going to get the detail when I walk in, and I'll talk to you after that, okay? Thank you.
Do you have a message for the hostages' family, sir?
Yes, I've spoken to the American hostage. I spoke to his mom and dad, and we're not giving up. We're going to continue to push as hard as we can. Thank you.
Thanks. The audacity of this man saying Netanyahu has not doing anything or not doing enough after he has laid, sleeping on a beach for 2 weeks. And, he goes to these public beaches. That's the other thing. It's not like he's on a private beach or he's in his house quietly doing things. No, he goes to a public beach. He lays prone. He's sleeping, with his mouth agape. And there's Jill right next to him reading some, romance novel. It is. And then he comes back and he actually says Netanyahu is not doing enough when they have agreed to multiple ceasefire agreements, which Hamas has then broken the promises made. It is absolutely despicable.
Well, and I know we're going to talk about this to go back. I mean, this is the double-handedness with which that they have approached this issue. Right, you've got them saying that Israel trying to tie Israel's hands behind its backs, trying to tie Netanyahu, and by the way, undermining Netanyahu at every other turn in terms of his credibility as a leader who's trying to lead his country through what is just a horrible and truly existential crisis. And for this guy to come back and to say this, sorry, go ahead, Julia.
Well, why not? What the reporter asked, is Netanyahu doing enough? And his answer is just no.
Yeah.
And he says nothing about Hamas. He says nothing about the demonic actions of this terrorist group. Instead, he directs. I mean, these people are very skilled at pivoting. It's called sort of block and bridge. When you don't want to answer the question, you sort of bridge it to a sort of related question. They're very skilled at this. He couldn't talk about Hamas, the monstrous actions of Hamas, these poor hostages and their surviving families. No, he took a shot at Netanyahu at a time where they had just found these bodies. It's just it's beyond despicable.
I mean, I don't even understand this statement here. He was quickly hailed by the families of the dead hostages. We urge Prime Minister Netanyahu to demonstrate similar resilience, determination, and commitment to the lives of the hostages. I mean, really? So you're going to blame the guy who's trying to manage you through a crisis, who was trying to get these guys rescued, and you're going to laud the guy who was doing whatever he could to undermine that effort?
Yeah, I know.
This is just crazy. Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's absolutely crazy. Well, look, we're going to talk more about this issue at 7:05. We're going to talk to Eli Lake at the Free Press. He's going to address this. This isn't really the end of our coverage on this. But first, it's 6:21. Yeah, so Biden comes back to work, talks to the press, criticizes Netanyahu, and. At the rally, I don't know if you saw coverage, Andrew, of that rally, but boy, he sounds bad. More gaffes, more slurring. I couldn't understand half of what he was saying. His pupils looked dilated. He looked angry.
Yeah.
And then he said something strange. He said something about he spoke to the American hostage, the parents of the American hostage found dead in the Hamas tunnel. Not true.
Yeah.
Not true.
Yeah. No, and that's just it. I mean, it's a situation in which you never know what he's sort of referring to, and if he left something off there, whether or not he spoke to the parents there. But this is the fascinating thing to me here. Let's hear Joe Biden at this Pennsylvania rally yesterday, Michael. Let's play cut 14.
Eric Dean of the Iron Workers, Tim Driscoll, a bricklayer, April Bell of the SEIU. Lee Saunders of Ashman, and a great friend. Where are you, Lee? And Jimmy Williams of the Painters Allied Trades and his dad.
Wow.
His dad is a really good man. Mike Coleman, a sheet metal worker.
Part of the problem is the juxtaposition of the names with the sort of the random string of words for the unions that are out there. I mean, it's one of those things where and maybe this is where they knew they had to pull him out. Dana Carvey on his podcast does a fantastic impression of Joe Biden, where it just sort of it gets
Yes.
increasingly nonsensical as it goes along. Yeah, Build Back Better butter. I can't believe it's not butter.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
you're right
pretty
though.
much-
You're right
yes.
though. They're all thinking, "Thank God we pulled out." Look, we're going to talk more about this, and
Yes.
actually, it's in the next half hour, we're going to talk about Tulsi defending Trump on with the Gold Star family. So we'll get to that right now. It is 6:29.
Now,
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
Good Tuesday morning. Thanks so much for tuning in. It's 6:37. It's O'Connor and Company. We've got a great lineup today. At 7:05, we'll talk to Eli Lake with the Free Press on Biden's latest criticism of Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu. At 8:05, we'll talk to Steve Moore from the Heritage Foundation. He'll talk about Kamala stealing Trump's steel policy. And at 8:35, we'll talk to our friend Molly Hemingway of the Federalist about an issue I care a lot about, and that is the Alexandria Karens putting the Vance family in danger. I'm Julie Gunlock, alongside my good friend Andrew Langer, who's sitting in for Larry O'Connor, the vacationing Larry O'Connor. How you doing, Andrew?
I'm fine. Happy Welsh Rarebit Day to you,
Oh,
Julie.
what?
For those who celebrate, apparently it's Welsh Rarebit Day. I don't know. I've never been a Welsh Rarebit fan, but
Well, and we're not jealous about Larry being on vacation.
No.
Not at all. So, we've talked a lot about Biden being back and sort of Kamala Harris's avoiding of the press. And it was interesting yesterday, Tulsi Gabbard was on CNN defending Trump for his appearance at Arlington National Cemetery. Tulsi was there with the Gold Star family members in Section 60, and she was on CNN, and she was talking to Dana Bash, who seems, obviously in the tank.
Oh yeah.
For the Harris campaign. Let's listen to cut 15, what Tulsi had to say about Trump and how to deal with Vice President Harris.
She is not to be underestimated. President Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris have very different records. This is a unique situation where we have two candidates who have served at the highest offices in the land. President Trump, 4 years as president. Kamala Harris, now almost 4 years as vice president, working alongside President Biden. And so this will be an opportunity for voters to look at and compare and contrast those records. If I can be helpful to President Trump in any way, it really is just in sharing the experience that I had with her on that debate stage in 2020, and frankly, helping to point out some ways that Kamala Harris has already shown that she is trying to move away from her record, move away from her positions, and how that contradicts the positions and statements that she is making now that she is the Democratic nominee.
Yeah, and she goes on to talk about something that I found this next exchange really interesting, because she talks about a well-publicized incident where the Biden administration actually put her on a terror watch list. Let's listen to what she says, and Dana Bash's response is kind of interesting. Cut 16.
Most recently, I can point to my own experience of this, of how the Harris-Biden administration have added me to a secret domestic terror watch list the very day after Kamala Harris was endorsed by Joe Biden, and I was on TV and warning the American people about what I saw as the dangers of a Kamala Harris presidency, taking action that was clearly political retaliation. They've done this to a lot of different people, which points to how dangerous it is to have people in power so willing to abuse that power to go after political opponents.
Okay. I'm not familiar with the secret terror watch list. We're definitely going to follow up on that, but I do want to move on.
Move on. Andrew, I know you're chomping at the bit here, but move on. And I'm not familiar with this story that's been played a lot in the media.
Your only job as a journalist at the what's supposed to be the gold standard for news gathering organizations, CNN, your only job is to be aware of what's going on in the world. This is a huge story. A former candidate for president of the party that's in power right
Yeah,
now in the
yeah.
White House, it has come to light that she is, from the moment she sets foot in an airport, she has a team of U.S. law enforcement officials secretly following her around until she leaves the airport at her destination. This is a huge story, and you're claiming you don't know about this, or you don't know about it generally?
Let's move on. Let's move on. Dana is sort of famous for this. Let's move on. She did a lot with Vance. But I want to get to Tulsi's sort of defense of Trump at Arlington Cemetery, which is so important because let's not forget, unlike Dana, Tulsi was there the whole time. She was there the whole time with Trump. And I want to get to cut 17 because she has some really, I think, a really interesting and moving perspective on this. Cut 17.
I do want to move on to what is happening with regard to controversy after the former president visited Arlington National Cemetery this week. His campaign took photos and video of him in Section 60, where veterans of the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan are buried, used it in a campaign video. The Army also says that Trump staffers abruptly pushed aside a cemetery official who tried to enforce Arlington's rules prohibiting political activities. I know you were with Trump at least earlier in that day at the tomb of the unknown soldier. Did you witness the altercation at Section 60?
I was there from the beginning with the laying of the wreaths with the family members, the Gold Star family members, and some of the survivors of that terrorist attack in that disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan. I was with them at Section 60, and what I saw was a very grave and somber remembrance and honoring of those lives that were lost. And I saw President Trump spending time at the invitation of these Gold Star families with them. He was there for a few hours. I did not see or hear about any kind of altercation until something came out in the news later on. The families were there grieving alongside President Trump, and it was a very special moment to really remember their names, remember their memories, and understand the true cost of war and the consequences of the decisions that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden made in the execution of that withdrawal.
Yeah.
Andrew, we will talk more about this really compelling witness testimony from Tulsi Gabbard there. We will talk more about this. It is 6:43. Got a little bit more of this Tulsi Gabbard interview on CNN with Dana Bash. Andrew, we played a couple clips, and it's interesting when you consider how Dana treated Kamala Harris and Tim Walz in that interview. Everything that they said was, okay, let's move on to the next subject. Everything they said was fine, great, let's move on. And then when you listen to this interview with Tulsi Gabbard, Dana is definitely pushing back on nearly everything she says. This next section shows just how these 13 families, these 13 Gold Star families, just aren't top of mind to these CNN anchors. Let's play cut 19.
The question is about the federal law and Arlington's rules that prohibit partisan
You know what,
or
Michael?
political
I'm
activities.
sorry. I meant to play cut 18.
The former president was invited in his personal capacity, as you said, by a family of one of the service members who was killed about 2 years ago during the withdrawal from Afghanistan.
It was 3 years ago.
3 years ago.
3 years ago
Thank
to
you
the
for
day
correcting
on
me.
August 26th.
Yes, 3 years ago. The question is about.
Yeah, so there you go. They can't even remember that it was 3 years ago. Tulsi had to correct Dana, who says it was 2 years ago. It just says a lot about.
Well, also,
go ahead.
The way that they're looking at this, I mean, because I played yesterday or heard the supercut of Dana Bash's interview with J.D. Vance and the constant pushback. We know she can do it when she wants to.
Right.
It's very clear that a choice is being made. No, I'm not going to go after you with the same vigor, which is why the Harris Walz campaign agreed to have her do the interview last week.
And again, we have cut 19 where it shows Dana continues to sort of push back on Tulsi. Let's play that.
The question is about the federal law and Arlington's rules that prohibit partisan or political activities at national cemeteries. And the military and also other members of other families who are buried right near there are upset about the campaign filming it and posting the video online. Do you believe that was appropriate?
You know, I checked with the campaign on this question, and they have exchanges with the officials at Arlington Cemetery. They were approved to bring a camera there to document this historic and momentous day that should not be forgotten by any American. And to have a former president there and joining these Gold Star families, I know President Trump wanted to share that with others, especially given the fact that President Biden and Harris, I heard, were invited by some of these family members. They not only didn't come, they didn't even respond to that invitation. And now to have Kamala Harris put this statement out yesterday saying that she stands with these families, she stands with the military and with veterans. You only have to look at the response that came from the Gold Star families of these 13 service members, of how offended they were by that statement, given she has not made any effort, not on that 3rd anniversary or any other time, to call them directly to offer her condolences and even apologies for their decisions that led to the loss of their loved one.
Excellent answer by Tulsi. But you will see in this next cut, last cut 20, where Dana insists that there might have been some campaign finance rules or federal law might have been broken. It's, again, try to remember how she treated Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, and then listen to how she continues to push on this issue.
I think the matter is closed about the alleged altercation, which you didn't see, but I'm not sure it's closed with the idea that they seem to have broken the rules and perhaps even federal law by putting out the campaign video. I want to ask you about...
I just like to say one last thing on this, because I think it's important, and I've seen a lot of the headlines and the stories and the concerns that people are raising about this. But to me, as a soldier and as someone who has been deployed to different war zones in the world, and I have friends who are buried there at Section 60, what is more outrageous to me is that there wasn't universal coverage of the momentous day of the 3rd anniversary of the loss of these 13 Gold Star families, and the outrage that they feel that their loved ones are not getting the kind of coverage and memory that their great sacrifice deserves. That is what everyone should be outraged about.
Well, yeah, we have covered the horrible events 3 years ago, and have done so several times. Over and over again. So I appreciate you also talking about their memories, because it's pretty important.
Pretty hard to listen to that, because we know that these news channels have totally ignored the 3-year anniversary.
Listen, Trump can't take a step without somebody accusing him of breaking a federal law, because the Lincoln Project is doing that too, and I know we gotta go out.
No, exactly. We've got more on this and many other issues. It's 6:53.